Good. So I'm just discussing a bit sustainable sourcing, and I'll have my part, and then I'll share it with you all right after, in a few minutes. Wouldn't be long. So on the issue of sustainability and procurement, or sustainability in procurement, um, well, in procurement, when you source or when you acquire goods and services, there's a process, right? A very rigid process once best practice is in place. All right. But anyway, if we are to follow this, one, you develop and integrate into supplier selection process, right? So what does that say? Once you start a sourcing process, or if you're about to source, or if you're sourcing from a supplier, the supplier should also be sensitive to sustainability issues. The supplier should be promoting, the supplier should have achieved certain sustainability certificates, depending on what you're acquiring from them or what you're procuring from them, right? So sustainability should be part of the supplier's culture. And what is culture? Culture is the way we behave, the way we do things, right? So develop and integrate into supplier selection processes. It must be part and parcel of the way must be part and parcel of your interaction with the supplier. It must be part and parcel of the entire procurement process as well, right? Not When I say part and parcel of every part of the procurement process, we're talking about the actual selection of a supplier. So in selecting a supplier, sustainability should be a critical criteria, right? Yes, critical criteria. There should be a point system as well, right? In terms of like when you're praising the supplier, for example, sustainability should be a variable to be given lots of attention, right? Set and communicate clear expectations for suppliers. Yes. So, when a supplier is on board, doing business with us, I'm talking about an approved supplier, for example. A very transparent line of communication is important, and we have to ensure, we should be ensuring that the supplier is meeting our service level agreements, meeting our policies and procedures as it relates to sustainability, right? So this requires constant auditing of the supplier, right? Don't let up. Constantly audit the supplier, all right? Constantly communicate with the supplier, update the supplier on changes in laws and so on, right? That will impact the whole sustainability agenda. Integration into buying practices. So I think we more or less spoke about that before. Education is key. Educate and support suppliers in setting their own business standards. So I want to say a quick note on that. There's something called supplier relationship management. What is supplier relationship management? Supplier relationship management is a concept or an approach that allows suppliers and buyers or supply chain professionals to collaborate closely, to work together. So working together and collaborating is all about problem solving. It's not about blaming each other, right? So if a supplier might have failed to commit to a particular standard, or if there was some shortcomings, right? Or if there are any suspicions, then you need to have a word with the supplier, right? You need to consult with the supplier, right, to reinforce as well certain breaches, right? If there was a breach, and be very clear on the consequences. At the same time, you need to work with your supplier. So training, this is where training comes in. So why not collaborate with the supplier, affording the supplier's personnel to be trained, all right, to be just do a seminar, all right, on environmental issues and the impact of environmental issues on the ecosystem, right? Why not? So, and it could be on both sides. And finally, manage stakeholder expectations and reporting on practices. So stakeholders, remember, when we are procuring, whatever you procure may very well impact on the community. It might be a chemical. It may impact on the community. All right. It might be capital equipment. It may very well impact on the community. All right. Because the capital equipment you might have procured, which will be used, all right, may very well, and if you would have procured several of it, it may, it may not do any justice to carbon footprint, right? So collaboration is important. Speak to your community. Supply chain professionals can do this through the organization. Speak to your community. Speak to your farmers. Speak to speak to persons involved in agriculture and everything. You need to collaborate, right? And once you collaborate and you hear their concerns, what you will be able to do is mitigate. You may not be able to eradicate all risks or all harm, but at least reduce it as much as you can. All right, that could go a long way. In terms of reporting is critical as well. So, acquiring feedback, running reports constantly, and having persons report to each other on the status of what we procure and the impact of what we procure is also critical. So just to wrap it up, in a couple of seconds, sustainable sourcing, just some guidelines to source things in a sustainable manner. And when I say sourcing, I am talking about buying things or acquiring things, right? Acquiring goods and even services, because you can acquire a service that is unethical. Testing 1 2 3 1 2 3. You got it?